Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Finale, and this is Real Estate Talk TGIF, episode 332. And that's 328 weeks in a row. We've had a few extra shows, but we keep coming every week. And today, a very special guest, friend of mine from the West Coast that I look up to, I admire, Dan Beer. Hey, Dan, how are you today, man?
Good, man. 320, whatever you just said. I recently learned that if you put out 20 podcast episodes, you're automatically within like the top 1% to ever do it because no one gets past 20. And you're on 300 and something. So good for you. I love it.
Yeah, and here's the interesting thing. You were on once before, and you were number 99.
Wow.
You were number 99 on May 8th, 2020 of all times. That's when you were on. Anyway, we're going to get started in 1 minute right after our opening and hit it, Nelson, with the video.
Real estate agents, are you looking to acquire clients consistently to grow your business and income for a great lifestyle? Well, this is Dave Finale, and I'm here to bring you the Real Estate Skill Builder broadcast, Real Estate Talk TGIF, brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder and the Modern Agent team.
Good morning, everybody. We're back. This is Real Estate Talk TGIF, episode 332, brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder. And I'm sorry, not the Modern Agent team, but Align. We work with Align here out in Northern New Jersey, and we're here to help everybody grow their business. And the reason for this broadcast is to give back as much expertise as possible. Maybe it's one little nugget that will help somebody, whether you watch it live or later on. Dan Beer is probably one of the top agents, top team leaders in the country, CEO of the Beer Home Team, powered by EXP, founder Agent Academy. You've done an awful lot. You've sold over $700 million in 1 year. Your team, you're ranked in the top 50 teams in the nation per the Wall Street Journal and Real Trends. You live in San Diego. I got a great family. Dan, welcome to the broadcast.
Appreciate it, man. Good to be here. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's excellent. I'm so fortunate to be involved with great people through yourself, through the Fast Forward movement, through EXP Realty, through my association with friends like John Cheplack, Grant Wise, all those people. And here it is. Before we get started asking the first question, I have to ask you another question, and that is, what does TGIF stand for?
Well, I'm sure the conventional wisdom would be, thank God it's Friday, but I'm going to say, I'm going on a limb to say you probably have a different way to define it.
A little bit. Thank God it's finale. I'm sorry, it's my broadcast, so 300 something gets me allowed to do that. So thank God it's finale. I didn't mean it for it to happen that way, but it just did from day one. Dan, let's get right into it. I mean, everybody, there's a lot of people in this business at EXP. Fast Forward movement, you started with Mary and Kyle, and it's something that is every week, and it is. I have the great opportunity and the beauty of being able to be involved with Solo Agent Mastermind from the Fast Forward movement, first Thursday of every month to do scripts and dialogues. It's an honor for me to do that. But you started this a long time ago, but you started somewhere else. Talk to me about and tell everybody about your journey, how you started in the business, man, and what you got through to get to where you are today.
Well, I was just a disgruntled employee at an aerospace company, and I didn't like my job. I didn't really understand why I would, this is just the way I was wired, for better or worse. Why would I work when no one sees my work? No one notices if I'm just scrolling ESPN all day or not. And no one, or if I do great work, right? Like either way, regardless of which way I take that day, I'm getting paid the same.
Right.
And I mean, the biggest thing the very quick of it is, so my dad, it was 2005 at the time. This is I'll complete my 20th year in June in real estate, but 2005, it was a hot market. My dad was about to sell a home. I got licensed to sell the home he was going to sell. And so, I ended up over here and getting exposed to this. And I could circle back to that. But boy, was I right. I mean, the thing that just sticks with me in my mind, I go to quit from a job that I really was not very good at, did very little work in, didn't understand, and spent most of my time just trading away my few dollars my parents left for me after college, and losing money on the stock market. And I remember Sirius Radio was the stock I just kept losing money on. And anyway, that's not the point. The point is I wasn't doing my job. I go to quit. And to my surprise, they're like, oh my goodness, you can come back. The door's always open. I thought they were going to celebrate me out the door. But the reality is, what an unfulfilled life where you're just not being seen, not recognized if you do good work, bad. And so I just couldn't function in that. I couldn't. And I was just I was excited to leave. So my story starts there. Of course, I get into a market that's hot. The market becomes not hot very, very, very quickly as the Great Recession rolls around. And in San Diego, especially the higher end market of San Diego, which is kind of where I sold my first handful of homes from just sort of, acquaintances, friends, family, and that kind of thing. That just fell off the face of the earth, actually starting in 05, deeply in 06. And
Right.
By the time you get to 2007, 8, 9, these are just painful years, year after year. And it's my son saying goodbye as he rolls off to school. And so the Great Recession comes along. Long story of that short is all of that, built-in sphere of influence of, friends, family, business just disappears, doesn't exist anymore overnight. So I was left with, how do I build a business? How do I purposefully generate leads? How do I do this, by design? Or I have to get out of the way, and God knows I tried. I was selling alcohol, vodka for some little startup brand, door to door to bars. I was selling debt settlement leads, and I'm talking as recently as 2009. But nevertheless, one thing started to finally hit for me, and it was my website started to pump out leads. I ended up with more leads than I could handle, started building a team, did it all the wrong way, spent about 3 years, 4, 5, 10, 9, 10, 4 years, just absolutely doing it wrong in a way that, thank God, I didn't even think was working out, so that I would rebuild it. Otherwise, I would have just been stuck losing money forever, doing it wrong because I wasn't doing it alongside or modeling anybody that had done it right. And once we got that going, the rest is history. I finally figured it out, but it took a long time, Dave, because it was a different environment than what's available now, in that there were no people incentivized to make it work for me. There was some very nice people that would give me some advice here, there, at a 20-minute coffee, but not incentivized to make sure it worked for me, because if it worked for me, it would work for them. And so today you see people growing so much faster than I ever did. And I can't even imagine what it would be like to get started now. So I hope that gives you the history you're looking for.
Yeah, and I see that as the old style real estate business and the new style real estate business. What I mean by that is I was involved with a franchise company for a long time, and the support was there. We'll help you, and they kind of did, but they didn't give you anything specific because they just wanted your company to make money, so they got paid their royalties. They were incentivized to help you, but they weren't incentivized to really come out with the nitty gritty of everything, as we've seen over the past number of years. And one of the things you said was when the shit hit the fan and you started getting into the business, your SOI disappeared. I find that interesting. Tell me what you did when that happened, because what we all know is that when you should be working with people you know rather than people you don't know, should be easier. But talk to me about that, Dan.
I appreciate you asking that clarifying question, Dave, because this is a story I tell often whenever I'm asked about my history. And I've never clarified before what I'm about to clarify for you now. And it's because you asked a good question. So thank you. Now I'll have it in my mind in the future moving forward as well. So yes, the friends and family business disappeared. That might sound like, wait, is SOI then not a sustainable business model? Is that not something I should be working on doing? Is that dangerous? No. What I've never clarified in the past is that I wasn't working my SOI. I didn't have an SOI marketing system. I wasn't communicating with them systematically. I was not doing anything to build value for them. I was simply waiting around to see if one of my dad's friends would need something, and if not, I'd be at the beach. So that's why it disappeared.
Makes a lot of sense because, like I said, I mean, it's a lot easier to work with people you know than people you don't know. But I will also tell you that one of the things that I've seen also is that there's a lot of new agents and existing agents that we talk about working with your sphere of influence. They say it's more difficult to make that call than to call it for sale by owner or expired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me give you this. This is really, really good. A lot of people, you'll get in. So if you're an agent, and you're saying, okay, look, it's actually interesting, Dave. I recently had my team, really, really bright, really just up and coming producer. This woman comes into my office and says, Dan, she had requested a one-on-one coaching session. And so she's been doing the work and I can see the activity. And I said, absolutely. And she starts asking about how she can develop her own personal business further. And I responded with talking about, well, I asked her a question. I said, well, before we start building new systems, just tell me first what you're doing for your sphere of influence, because I know you know a lot of people. You have a big community. What are you doing? And her response was a combination of nothing, excuses of why not, and that, which were all mindset issues. And also her telling me that every top producer she keeps asking keeps telling her the same thing, but she hasn't done it. And here's all the reasons why my sphere of influence is different from everyone else's on the planet.
Of course.
And so we talked through that all, but it's just, at the end of the day, there's just there's a fear of, I'm going to call somebody that I know, I'm going to get embarrassed, it's going to be hard. Or sometimes my fear was a sense of being disingenuous. Like, let's say you're my buddy, Dave, you're in San Diego, I'm calling you, I'm really looking for business and a referral, but I call you to talk about the Padres and how they're in the playoffs and you think they're going to make the World Series or not. And we're bullshitting together. And then after this 20-minute call, which sucks up part of my day, that's part of my fear is, man, I'm going to have a long investment of time to BS with Dave, to finally ask him the thing I want to ask him. And then when I do, I'm going to feel disingenuous because he's going to kind of sense that I've just tricked them into a personal conversation that was really a business conversation, and all that feels like crap. So my suggestion to you, if all that noise is in your head, and some of that noise, frankly, being very well warranted, I don't want to spend 20 minutes per call when I'm doing business. I don't want to be disingenuous to my friend Dave when I'm calling to talk personal, and then he figures out I'm really trying to slide a referral in. So here's the solution. Next, go and put in your calendar a session with your sphere of influence. To call them, to contact them. And you're going to say, hey, Dave, you could have a moment's worth of pleasantries. Hey, Dave, it's Dan. Yeah, good to see you. Oh, yeah, real nice dinner last night. But though, Dave, today I'm actually making a business call. Right up front, guys. Though, Dave, today I'm actually making a business call. And I wanted to ask you, because you know how important, you know how hard I'm working. I wanted to ask you, is there anybody that you can think of from your kid's soccer team, the school, the whatever, I know whatever it is that he goes on his life and work.
Right.
Is there anyone, and I'm going to name an area or three from his life. Is there anyone you can think of that's thinking about making a move? Because I want to work with people like you, because people like you are people like me. I mean, there's a reason we're buddies, and I'd love a referral. So he's going to give me the referral or not. I've shortened the conversation by a huge amount. Right? We just went from 20 minutes to finally get to what I would call to say to I'm saying it in the first minute or the first 2 minutes. He's going to answer the question. I can still circle back and say, well, thanks for thinking about that, Dave. If you do think of somebody later, would you mind giving me a call? Would there be anything that would stand in the way of you referring me to somebody that you notice is talking about moving, getting married, having children, anything that's going on? Great. Thanks, man. By the way, and I can now come back to you. By the way, what do you think about a barbecue next week? Great. Okay, wonderful. But the point, and then hang up. But the point is, Dave understands I'm on a business call. We're not going to end up stuck for 20 minutes. So I went from a 20-minute call to a 5-minute call, and I feel, my integrity is intact because I told him right up front why I'm calling.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, here's the question though. Okay, so we want to stay in touch with our SOI. We want to make sure that they know we're involved. And look, let's face it. I mean, with social media, email, text, all this other stuff, we can keep in touch with them in many different ways, and they can see what we're doing. Dan, is that a first call? Is that a second call? Is that someone? I mean, we have to build our list, right? We're all going to build our sphere of influence list. And what I teach and coach and what others do and what we're doing out here with Align is we're trying to base our business on our sphere of influence first, then go to everything else second. is there a series of calls? Is there a way? Is that your starting call? Is that, what's the plan? What's the process? Or isn't there? Or is that just it?
Okay, first of all, I want to highlight something. Dave just said, we want to build our business through sphere of influence first, and then move on to everything else. I want to remind you of the coaching session I had with this person who came into my office for the coaching session and asked me about all kinds of ways to build their business. And I said, and there was nothing for me to talk about with her because she hadn't done the foundational system, which was her sphere. So we're aligned here. The call that I'm suggesting, my experience, Dave, is very few agents are actually systematically calling their sphere of influence 4 times a year on a quarterly basis. Okay, so if you want to talk about an ongoing system, then sure. I'm going to have my very, very simple sphere of influence event. What would that be? No, I don't need a party planner. I don't need resources. I don't need, to hire an event planner. I just need to think for half a darn second about what restaurant is located in a reasonable location for most people to get to, and call and invite them to, hey, I'm invited to an intimate gathering. That way I get also rid of the noise in my head of, gosh, what if no one shows up, or only 3 people show up and I'm embarrassed? Well, I invited them to an intimate gathering, but I invited 100 people. So I get 100 people worth of credit on the invitation. I get 3 or 4 or 6 or 10 people to show up. We have deep connection. I didn't need to plan anything. I just told them where to show up. And I told the bartender, anyone that gives you my name, just put it on my tab. And it cost me $100 to connect with 6 people at a deep level. That I digress, but I kind of don't, because I'm going to set up say 2 of these on a yearly basis to then make a very simple call to invite you to the thing and ask if there's anything that you need or any questions you're seeing about all the interest rate changes, the Federal Reserve's remarks, what it all means. A lot of people were asking questions. There's whatever the headlines are, just be that resource, but invite you to something. There's value there. So yes, we could talk about a system in a moment, Dave, but most people aren't doing that. And the reason they're not doing that is because there's just noise in their head. Well, I haven't called them in years. I haven't this. What if we get stuck on a 20-minute call? What if they figure out that I'm just really looking for a referral? So I'm giving you the script to get out of your own way.
Perfect. Love it. So, and basically what we're doing is we're fortifying a relationship that we had or have, or that we could have, right? There's a lot of different ways to do it. Over the last, few weeks, months, and whatever, I've seen you at events. You've talked. I mean, the big thing that I've seen you talk about at the last event, which was the Tahoe Mastermind, was marketing. And a lot of agents believe they need to do all kinds of different marketing to build their business. Talk to me a little bit, Dan, about what marketing you believe can be very effective for agents today.
Well, there's a foundational system which ties back to the sphere of influence program, but it also will hit any lead source. Like, I would never go door knocking without what I'm about to share with you. I would never call expireds without what I'm about to share with you. I wouldn't even call my sphere without what I'm about to share with you. Because once you're doing what this foundational marketing system, it will lift everything you do. Could be from sweat equity activities like door knocking to you're spending X amount of thousands of dollars a month, big or small, on whatever portal, lead source, PPC, you name it. It's going to lift everything. So the foundational system is, are you putting out educational content with your unique voice, written by you, filmed by you if it's video, could be long form copy, it can be video, and putting it out consistently to your database. So as an example, a video could be, or an article, or something you write to your database could be, you name it. It could be, let me just pull one out of the old rear end here for a moment. It could be, hey, there's so much noise when selling your home, but there's only 2 things that actually matter, and here they are. It could be staging is wildly misunderstood. That's why most people screw it up. And I'll solve that for you right here in 60 seconds. It could be anything like that.
Right.
And if you start to put that, let's just say you do it in video format, which I would absolutely encourage you to do. And this email goes out every week to your entire database. So that includes your sphere, your past clients, your door knocking contacts. Because by the way, when you're door knocking, if you thought you were door knocking for listings, you were mistaken. You were door knocking for data to add to the database, to market to and add value to on a long-term basis. And you name the source, the same thing applies. So that's the foundational system that will lift everything. Beyond that, Dave, from a marketing standpoint, everyone needs at least one funnel that works day in, day out, sick or healthy, night, sleeping, wake, what doesn't matter. And that one funnel should be producing, let's just take the same thing I said a moment ago, or let's, if I can even remember it. But there was, there's only two things that really matter when selling your home. Here's what they are. Everything else is costing you time and money. Download this PDF, you'll have it. So if you can create, because most realtors, they're just, hey, do you want to sell? Do you want to buy? Do you want to sell? Do you want a referral? Do you want to buy? Do you want to sell? So that's great for that 5% of the entire world that's like thinking about doing something now, that you have no ability to nurture the 95% that are not in the decision-making stage. Now, of the 95%, a large percent of them are just not going to download your thing or even interested in engaging with anything real estate related. But there's a much larger portion than the very small sliver of people that are ready to respond to a buy now message. There's a much larger amount of people that are in the information gathering stage. Should we? Could we? Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be next year? The kids are X amount of years away from graduating. Our marriage is working out or not working out, or this or the whatever it might be.
Right.
So how are you pulling them into your database to then hit with that foundational email I talked about a moment ago on a forever basis? And then, of course, there's other tools and things, right? But if we're trying to build a system here, Dave, everyone needs that one thing, that one funnel to build their database. And so it could be a PDF download like that. It could be something curiosity-based, such as a home value funnel. What would someone pay in this market type of funnel? And there's different great tools for that. But you need one thing that's just consistently working for you. And most people just don't have that. But if you have that, and then an ongoing, like you're actually talking to your database, which is kind of a wild idea for people.
It is. It really is.
Well, then it's like, this is the dumbest industry ever. And I don't mean what I mean is, it's just, dumb is going to mislead you into it's the wrong energy. It's not what I'm going for, but it's just the stupidest thing in the world. That's kind of in how much opportunity there is to be great by just doing the most basic of things, basic of things.
And all of this is about who you are, what you're doing with the email, with what you're doing on social and all the other stuff. And it's all interconnected. It's where you're building value, right? It's where you're also building a better relationship with your database at the same time. And then it does make that call a little bit easier when you call every quarter or once a year or whenever it is, doesn't it?
Oh, it makes it so much easier. It makes it, all of us, it's just interesting. Like that email system I talked about. It's like, have you noticed online in the different Facebook groups and all that? Yeah, it's, things like open houses are great. Open houses suck. Such and such portal's amazing. Such and such portal's terrible. Door knocking's incredible. Door knocking stinks. Well, why do you think? It's because some of us are giving ourselves a gigantic advantage in actually in having a long-term value building brand building process. And others of us think that we paid for the PPC lead, and so we deserve a sale.
Right. And that's never going to be the case. I mean, look, we've heard this phrase that I mentioned a minute ago. You got to show value. When everything happened with NAR, that was one of the things that we heard a lot. You've got to bring value. You've got to add value. You got to tell people what your value is. And what you're talking about with how you market yourself and how you put everything together, it's all about you and who you are and the person you are for sharing and building that relationship. But it also has to do with actually doing the work as well. So, that has to do with, not just doing it as a hobby, but actually doing it intentionally and doing it consistently. And that has a lot to do with something you've talked about is the type of boss you are with yourself and setting things up on your calendar, which is one thing that I've always said. One of the things I've always worked on is it there? Are you going to do it? Will you do it? How disciplined are you? That has a lot to do with principles as well, what your principles are for yourself, but it also has a lot to do with fear that you might not want to do it because, what is somebody going to think? Dan, if you could put some of those things together, I'm talking about calendar and scheduling and discipline. Talk to me about that and how that's helped you and how it helps your team.
Yeah. And it's just an amazing industry. On my end, I put up a reel recently on my Instagram, and it's popping off. And the reason why is people resonate with the message and recognize how much opportunity there is in how amateur our industry is. That the very problems in our industry with the low barrier to entry, the lack of just standing here, welcome, here's your license, congrats.
Right.
It's also where all the opportunity is. But the problem, Dave, and what the reel hits on, is that the very thing that brought most of us here, freedom, be my own boss.
Yep.
The very thing that's killing people.
Yep.
The freedom you came for is the thing that is completely in your way. The freedom you came for is why you're undisciplined. The freedom you came. Here's how. Look at how insane this is. Okay, and I haven't used this analogy in a long time, but I'm going to return to it because I think your audience will really resonate with it. You have a hardworking audience. It's your guy that wakes up in the morning and puts your pants on and kind of does things. Like, no kidding. No wonder you're successful. So, if we were opening an ice cream shop, Dave, like if you and I are like, hey, let's partner on a local ice cream shop right here in our neighborhood. Do you realize how much work we'd do? And by the way, let me just give you like the end of the story here real quick. Like if we crushed it, what's an ice cream shop, like a little local shop gonna make? Maybe $100,000 if it crushes. And what would we have done to try to chase down this $100,000? Well, we would have leased some retail space. We would have worked on our branding and our signage. We would have gotten all the inventory, and we're in all that money for all the refrigeration units, and we would have built the whole thing out with the TIs. Then we would have also had to get a point of sale system, their cash register system, and the banking system, and all those things would have to go into place. And by the way, we'd also go hire some people, probably have, they might be high school kids on minimum wage, but either way, we'd have employees, we'd have payroll. We'd have a lot of energy, effort, time, and risk, possibly debt, to try to chase down $100,000 or maybe $200,000 if it's like the best ice cream on this side of the Mississippi. And then realtors who are talking about wanting to make athlete money, doctor money, lawyer money, entertainer money, all of which is available. They won't put in even part-time work. Hey, but Dan, I'm a full-time agent. No, you're not. Let me see your calendar.
Hell yeah.
Did we do 2 hours of dollar productive activity, day in, day out, every period? For how long do I need to do that, Dan? Kind of like forever. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, or whoever else stopped practicing. Stop doing the boring things. Oh, but you shouldn't be bored, not even for 2 hours a day. You want freedom. You want athlete money. You won't do even part-time work. And what's so amazing about this industry is that those of us that'll put in even less than part-time work, because 2 hours a day, my God, even less than 2 hours, or even less than part-time work, can unlock income levels that are unthinkable. And of course, we are trying to trap you here a little bit. And what I mean is, Dave and I understand that if you do those 2 hours, which is, let me re-highlight this, less than part-time work, and slightly less effort than the ice cream shop that Dave and I had to put up, slave over, just to make a nickel or two. If you're willing to do that, then all of a sudden you do end up with incredible opportunities, incredible freedom, incredible, all kinds of choices. But there's a saying, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Yeah, if you want your share of freedom, great. You're going to have to be the most ruthless boss in the world, because we don't have one in real estate, and that's the problem. So you'll have to be your own ruthless boss and have boredom, routine, discipline every single day, period. Hate to break it to you. Sometimes that means 6 or 7 days a week, because in real estate, we don't get weekends, we don't get holidays, we earn them. I haven't worked the weekend in years, but they were earned. And if you're willing to do that, then you can have this reward you're talking about. And if you're not willing to do that, please shut your yap.
Hell yeah. And here's the thing I try to tell agents. If you're succeeding, then you might be a good boss. If you're not succeeding, then you suck as a boss, because you're not being ruthless on yourself, just as you just said, to be a ruthless boss. I've always said that people got into this business to make as much money as they want and to work whenever they want. Obviously, they don't want to make any money and they don't want to spend any time working, because most of the agents in this business, what are they doing? Two deals a year, Dan? So, I mean, if you
the average in San Diego is under 2. I don't know what it is nationally. Typically, nationally, it's higher than San Diego. But in San Diego, it is under 2.
I will tell you that, I'll just talk about my MLS that I work out of. 12,000 some agents. I take a list every 6 months of those that have done two transactions and more. It's about 15% that have done 2 transactions or more. 2 transactions. I cut it off.
Deal. I understand, by the way, how I'm coming off. I understand the intensity. I understand the language. I'm trying to shake you. Now, look, hey, but Dan, it's a lifestyle thing. It's a side thing. I'm a dad. I'm a mom. I have this other job. That's awesome. You're just not, I'm not speaking to you, but I am speaking to the person who says they want to earn, like the point guard for the Pistons, and they won't do less than part-time work. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. So there are many ways to do real estate, and I recognize that, and I honor that. I think it's awesome. One of the things that I'll say that we make a mistake sometimes on as leaders is that you do have to understand where people are at. And so I'm talking to my people. Who are my people? You want to be a top producer. You want to be a top producer? Let's hang. Let's do top producer work, but let's hang. Some people want to sell 4 or 6 or 10 or 12 a year, and they figured out how to do it. And I honor that. That's awesome. And actually, as a leader, you have to learn how to identify those people and not make them feel bad about themselves, but rather support them right where they are, right where they're at. Because sometimes if we see the greatness in them and we say, Dave, why don't you do more? You can do more. You can, and he's hearing, Dave, why aren't you good enough? Dave, why aren't you good enough? Dave, but he's not striving to become that top producer. I am, however, I'm talking so that intensity is about, hey, I want to be a top producer, but I'm acting like a mushy, slothy, forgot to put my pants on in the morning. Hold on a minute. Let's get your language and your goals in alignment, please, and your actions, most importantly.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've realized, you talked about 10 hours. I mean, because that's really, if you think about it, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. You don't have to work the weekend. You have to make the calls during the weekend or prospect during the weekend. But income producing time, 10 hours, you really can build a great business. And whether it's that 6 that you want to do or that 10 you want to do, or whatever you want to do, it's really not that difficult. All you need to do is show up. And so I always like the the 9 to 5 job analogy that I use is really simple. If you go to work at 9 o'clock, you're going to show up and be starting at 9 and you finish at 5. And what happens at the end of each week? You get a paycheck, hopefully, right? If you do the work. What happens if you don't do the work? Well, you might not have a job. So I talked about being a shitty boss. I talked about being a better boss for yourself. You're going to make sure you get that paycheck. And here's one thing that I've always said is I believe that realtors should be desiring that paycheck every week. So that's where you go. That's where you go to. And if it's that one deal a month, okay, great. You know, how do you get that across to newer agents who have a lot of fears and a lot of limiting beliefs?
Well, I mean, that's the very thing, is that people want this to not be a job. They thought it was a freedom path. They thought it was, all these different things, but it is absolutely a job. In fact, people constantly use the wrong language, and I think that's a problem. You'll have somebody who is selling or aspires to sell 18 homes in a year, and depending on the marketplace, that could be a great living, and that's a good agent. Don't get me wrong, that's a good agent.
Right.
But how do I judge if someone's? All right, there's a lot to say here, and you're gonna have to bring me back to the question you asked. But what I want to just recognize real quickly is two people lost, let's say we're talking about weight. Someone weighs 290 pounds. Someone weighs 160. Who's doing better? See, I'm not talking about you need to be 160 to be great, and if you're 290, you're not. The 290 person has worked their tail off and come down from 320. Respect, man. Respect. Awesome. I'll hang with you all day long. The 160 person, or whatever I said, is at 160, keeps talking about wanting to be at 145, doesn't do jack, doesn't get up in the morning, doesn't change any habits. F that person. I'm going to go hang out with 290 guy over there, taking action. So bring me back to your question. Somehow that put me on that path. But it's just, I'm just wanting to honor that it's not about like the numbers, sell 100 homes and that's the only thing. No, but are you congruent with what you're saying?
Exactly. It's are you doing what you say you want to do? And when I work with a lot of newer agents, a lot of agents that are stuck, and it's like, tell me what you want. Here's a path we can work on together for you to get there. If you don't do the work, the question I'm going to have for you is, you say you want all these things. You say you want, let's say a young guy wants to get out on his own. I'm going to ask one simple question, Dan, and that question is going to be, how would I know? I want this, 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 and this. How would I know you want that? Show me what you're doing. Well, I don't want to do it this way. And this go back to the original question is, how do we, as leaders, as coaches, as mentors, as trainers, as people in the business for a while, how do we help people get past that limiting belief that they have that, okay, yeah, that works. Okay, I'll get to that. Or let me put this in my calendar and, oh shit, I didn't get to it. Where's the push? Where's the button to get people through that limiting belief, man?
So now I know how I ended up on that path. It's about congruent language, and language matters so much. So you'll have someone that's driving the 18 sales. This person might be working their butt off and doing all the right things, but there's something that still gets in their way. They talk about their business. Now, you don't have a business. Show me your employees. Show me your proprietary systems. Show me that you can make money when you're on vacation. Show me the asset you're building. That's not okay. And by the way, it's not an insult. Guess who doesn't have a business either? Name your favorite athlete making millions of dollars. They have a job. Name your favorite, you get the point, attorney making name an attorney making $1 million a year. They have a job. They don't have a business. And so it's okay to recognize that you have a job. And and here's the problem, we're an industry of people that didn't like our previous job and didn't want to have a job. So we came to this thing. Well, gee, why did 95% of people fail in this business? Because you're not even giving yourself the opportunity by using language such as my business, when no, it's my job of communicating with people, my job of making the calls, my job of putting together the marketing message and communicating with my sphere, my job of waking up every morning and committing 2 hours of dedicated dollar productive time, day in, day out, whether I like it or not, because my boss will kick my ass and my boss is me. And I fear more the possibility of losing respect for myself. And I've shared with people in my life that are important to me, a spouse, children, parents, you name it, best friend. And that they would be disappointed in me and that I would be disappointed in me. And I fear that far more than that boss, my formal boss at the previous job, would be disappointed in me. But for some reason, I woke up in the morning for that dude or that lady, and I don't wake up for these other people, including myself, who are far more important. So, Dave, I don't know how to answer your question to truly get someone, all I can do is try to provide awareness, try to create framework for people that just try to have a light bulb moment. But at the end of the day, you need to make a decision. You need to make a decision, and you have to have self-awareness and to have a reality check that you have a job, that you can turn into a business someday. But boy, if you really want to have the business, you better develop more, bigger database than you ever imagined possible, and stretch that to its limits, because then you can have a business which requires other people to do a whole lot of things so that you could have an actual true business. Until that day, you have a job, know it, and that might actually change your activities.
Yeah, I think the entire broadcast that we're coming down to answers the question, because you talked about framework, you talked about why you're doing it, who you're getting up for. You're getting up for that boss in that 9 to 5, or you're getting up for your family, getting up for yourself. That's the answer to the question. Is, first of all, do what you say you're going to do. That's one of the things that I always look at. What's the reason for what you say you want to do? And that's why you're going to build and get through that limiting belief. Look, we all grew up in certain ways that we believe certain things because that's what we were taught or how we did things. The thing that always bothered me, as no matter how old I was, whether it was 40 years ago or 40 minutes ago, when someone says, well, that's how we do it. No. How do you want to do it? How do you want to grow? Dan, this time is going very, very quickly, and I want to thank you for being on this broadcast today, and thank you for coming. I just got a couple of quick questions for you, and then one other thing. If you could come down to 1 or 2 things that an agent needs to do to really grow their business in this time that we're in, with the way the market is, with the different changes that have happened, what would that be? Is there something you would tell people to do right away, or is there something that you could bring it down into 1 or 2 things?
Yeah, look, here's you want $1 million business plan?
There we go.
2 hours a day, dollar productive activity. 20 conversations a week over 2 minutes, measured in your CRM, through the CRM, done in the CRM. And if they weren't done there, they weren't done at all. Hey, but all my personal, all my sphere and my friends, they have my personal number, and that'd be weird if I called them from a different one. No, it wouldn't be weird. You'd just be making money. because then you could measure what you do. Just get sometimes there's that one simple thought that if you got rid of that one thought, everything else would become easier. So here's your business plan: 2 hours a day, dollar productive activity, 20 conversations a week, which by the way is a total joke. Most of us, people like Dave, I guarantee you, and I haven't talked to him about this, most of us grew up in this business doing 20 conversations a day. But I'm asking you to do 20 a week. Why? Because a mentor of mine said, when I was arguing with him about how ridiculous of a low bar that is, he said, go into your CRM and take a look. There's a call report. He knew what CRM I use, Follow Up Boss. There's a call report. Go take a look. Check how many out of your 50 agents are actually doing 20 a week. I expected they all would be. 2 of them were.
Right.
It's just such a silly, silly, silly industry. And that's the opportunity. So here's your business plan: 20 conversations a week that last over 2 minutes, dollar productive activity for 2 hours a day, and clear your, this gets into a follow-up system conversation, but in a decent modern CRM, you'd be able to say, hey, well, if this person's, this kind of, in this stage, say, buying within 3 months, here's how often I want to call them. And if they're buying 3 to 6 months, here's how often I want to call. And if they're buying 6 months to 12 months, here's how often, and so on. So you could just apply these very simple rules that don't require any programming. These are this is super, super simple. It's just how modern CRMs are built. They're called smart lists. Clear them daily.
Yep.
So if you cleared your smart lists every day, and you called people and talked to them, and you actually did dollar productive activity for 2 hours every day, you'd have a decent little business. Or, let me say that differently, you'd be doing a lot better in your job.
100%. Hey, man, thanks so much for being on. 2 more quick things. Number one, most important question I ask everybody every week: how can I help you grow your business?
Oh, man. I'll keep that one in my back pocket. How about that? And I'll reach out to you anytime I need.
Awesome, man. And last but not least, you were on episode 99. You got one. Now you're getting a different one. The hat's back. Just a different color. Different. That's all there is to it, man. I want to thank you so much for being on today. Next week, we have the one and only Kyler Ferris coming on.
Oh, wow. He's amazing, man. So that's awesome.
So we got Kyler coming on. We got a lot of different people coming on in the near future. This is going to be a lot of fun next week. But Dan, thank you so much for being on. We've got your Instagram up there. Here's some other contact information for Dan. Dan, just stay on for a second as we go out. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week for episode 333. Hit it, Nelson.
Nelson ain't hit.